In this video, we're going to learn about how the VMOM supervisory works. First, we're going to open the software. When open, we'll configure an example camera. In our case, camera 1. We'll start the analysis within this selected ROI. In our case, the analysis will be to see if there's a person in this area at the moment. The analysis. In our case, we'll use tool 1A. Choose it. The drawing is already fixed up here, the drawing of the analyzed area. We'll start the analysis. Once started, we'll begin the transmission. Related to result 1, determining if there's a person in the selected area. We click on transmission. We start the DB file transmission and DB image. Let's configure our output here. From the ROI we selected here in variable 3, meaning variable 3 from camera 1 is being transmitted to the main module. After the transmission is done, the data can be read in the main module. Inside the main module, we'll go to Supervisory. When we click, we can see here we have the update time, or, in other words, it's the reading update time. That will read the data from our DB file configured in the camera 1 transmission. Enable or disable. In our case, we'll leave it enabled. Start and stop. The supervisory system. Let's start the setup. We'll put our variable 1 here. Choose the camera. Select the variable for camera 1. As mentioned in previous videos, the results when they are yes or no are 0 for negative and 1 for positive. In our case, we'll select if variable 3 is positive, in this case, 1. The output here, instead of being 0, will be what I write here if it's written. Or I can make my output here be selected as well as the variable I selected, meaning I can write my result or choose another type of analysis for the outcome shown. We'll start our test here as writing, where I type the input. Let's begin. We'll say there's a individual in the selected area. If positive, we can choose a color for the square we'll draw later. Let's choose the color orange. We can pick a color for the square. Select as if there's no square while it's negative. Identify it as location. Rename it here. Location name. Out. Output. Out equals output of the paper machine. And here we can select a time we want this output to stay. Safe, remain positive if it's triggered. For example, if it's triggered, I want it to stay triggered for 5 seconds. Here we can enter the site name. In our case, it will be Monitor. Site overview. The port. We have 2 themes we can select. Here's the Start button. In our case, it won't work because we haven't started the Supervisory yet. We have the Restore button that restores all settings made within the site. We haven't reached this point yet. Right below, we can register the admin user. Let's register a user. And we can also register regular users for use. Let's register a user here too. As we can see, we can use up to 10 users. Down here is where we select the days that remain archived. The data of variable changes from the Supervisory. In our case here, it's pre-filled as 60 days. That means all changes and activations are stored for 60 days. In this configuration, every day at 6 a.m., the database cleanup is executed. We'll keep it for 30 days, storing only the last month. We'll begin. When we start, we can go back to VMOM and open the log file where we can see that the Supervisory system was started. Any issues can be checked here in the log file. We will return to the Supervisory system. Since we've already started it, we can open the site. This is the site. Remember, localhost will only work on the local machine. For it to work on other machines, you need to know the IP of the server in question. In our case, we'll log in here as the admin user that we registered. Where we have the initial view of the Supervisory system site. As we can see, we can insert an image in our case. Let's insert a drawing of the paper machine. Let's open the VMOM software. The software's at version 1. There's probably someone in front. They left. Let's return. The value went to 0. It was probably 1 because there was someone in front of the ROI at the time of the video. In this case, the person left. And the output returned to 0. Let's go back to the site. As we can see, the square when the person was in front of the ROI. A square appeared here earlier. Let's simulate how this square works so we can start the configuration. Let's go back to the supervisory. We'll set it here to 0. To simulate the output being 1. Okay, because our variable 3 is 0 at this moment. Setting it to 0 makes my output positive for configuration. We can see it appeared here in the middle, where we can place it in the region we want. In our case, we'll move it to the paper machine's output. We can zoom out. Make the square bigger. And we can increase the font size. We can also enlarge or reduce the image. In our case, we'll keep the normal size. As we can see, if it's positive, we have the output here. And here we have the list of positive items. In our case, the output was identified as a person. We can also increase the text size in this list. Make the square bigger. And increase the line size. We'll return. Supervisor. We'll go back to 1. In our case, there's a person right now in front of the ROI. And in our supervisory, we have here that there's a person in front of the ROI. Right in the area. We'll wait. When they exit the ROI, we have. This interval holds value 1 for 5 seconds. Soon, this value 1 will be reset. Once it's reset, we have here our supervisory. Since we left it for 5 seconds, the output value is also fixed for 5 seconds. The square vanished. This way. Add delays. When a person is present, the result is held active for 10 seconds, even if the person leaves the area where. We can check the list here to increase this delay and hold it longer, for example. We can go back to the main software and increase this time for example, to 10 seconds. We can configure up to 60 variables in the supervisory module where we can set up 60 squares of this in the same image. We'll wait again for the person to enter the area. Selected in this region will check the update of the web supervisory. We'll wait a few. a few moments. There's a person in the region and the value is transmitted to the supervisory. The manual contains the full description of the items discussed so far. About the supervisory. We'll head back. On the site, we can also select the alarm option. Where in this item can we set the operating hours? Including start and end times. In our case, it starts at 0 hours and ends at 24 hours, resulting in all-day monitoring. We'll select here if my output has an alarm. I want my visual signal. If my output's 1, I have a visual signal and also an audible signal that the browser itself triggers. We'll return here soon when we have an event. Positive, and we'll see the visual alarm. Clicking on the main menu, we have the monitor item where we have a button for each camera where we can select the camera and the image of the camera in question is displayed. For the web supervisory. In this item here, we can also set up the alarm on the button itself to know if that item is alarmed, linked to this camera. For us, we will start the alarm and configure camera 1 with the variable sup1 that we configured in the supervisory. With sup1 being the output of the variable 1. This way, when a person enters the ROI, the alarm will be triggered. We will wait for the person to enter the ROI and check the operation. Here we have the image from camera 1. Entered. We can see an alarm on the top line, indicating the camera is also alarmed. And if we go back here to the supervisory system too, we can see a visual alarm up here. Both pages have an audible alarm. Below. When we activate it, we can check how all the outputs are configured. In our case, we will leave this one selected. We can also see that we have the page history. On the history page, it stores all activities with positive times and dates of activation and times and dates of termination. In our case, it's blank here because the square hasn't yet been removed. Let's go back to the supervisory system. The square disappeared. We'll return to the history where we can see that it was filled out this way. So this way, we have a history of the operation and the items that occurred during the shift where we can filter by date, time, names, by volumes, and also filter variables. and also the number of limit of results we want to appear on the web page when the filter is finished. In our case, we'll filter here only the date of the occurrences for today. We'll apply it, and here we have only the items that occurred today. After filtering, I can click the CSV button and perform the download of the activity history. In a CSV file. Further down, we have the site exit, and we return to the login page, remembering that we logged in as an admin user. Admin user is only for configuring alarms and the page. We will now log in here as a viewer user. When we log in as a viewer user, we can see there's already an alarm here. Let's enter the monitor. Camera 1, and we can verify there's a person in the selected ROI. We can see the regular user doesn't have the configurations the admin user has. This way, the supervisory system is simple and functional. We will wait for the person to leave. In front of the camera again here. We will wait for the 15 seconds set for the alarm duration. As we configured here, being 5 seconds on the camera, plus 10 seconds configured. In the supervisory system, as we can see, the value was restored. We'll minimize for now the supervisory system and start, as mentioned earlier, an analysis of AI for the ROI in question. We'll do it like before. It will analyze if the person is wearing PPE or not. And in my output from the supervisory system, instead of writing person, I want my output from input 1. My written output from input 1. And we will wait. The person enters the ROI. When entering ROI, the artificial intelligence will assess if the person is using PPE. If so, the output will be positive, and the written output will be selected. In our case here, we will also select the written output. So if my AI is positive, I want it to be transmitted to the web. We will wait. Now we will enter the supervisory system. And we will check in the supervisory system. The AI result went to the system. This way, in the supervisory system, we can have the data through the offline data from tools 1 to 5. Set up online via OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini APIs. In the manual, we can learn more about how the software works.